Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Culture Shock with Shows. I'm coming on at this time. It's been a while I've been on this channel. Please, if you can help me out by going to like, share, and support this channel. If you want to know more about this channel, go to the first video I shared, and you'll be able to know more about it. But in a quick summary, Culture Shock is about the black culture all over the world. What I try to do is to lend my voice, to encourage the coming together of people of African descent from all over the world, people in America, Europe, South America, all over the world, people of African descent, black people as we say. So it's been a while I've been on this channel doing a video, but with recent events in the United States, I think I have to lend my own voice as well. I think I have something to say because I've been thinking about this for a long time. Since I came to America, I've been thinking about all these things, and that's what made me that's what made me start this channel. So the title today is, do you have an African name? This topic is specific to my brothers and sisters, African Americans in America. It's a question that I'm asking you. Do you have an African name? The reason I'm asking that question, this topic has been among topics that I've put together to talk about, but with recent events, thinking deep. I'm somebody that think a lot. I try to think about events, what is going on, why is it going on. I do a lot of research. So, black men being killed in America by the authorities, the police, is kind of like getting out of hand. Even in this coronavirus season that we're facing, these things are still happening. So I want us to look inward. These things happen over and over again. It never stops. I was talking to a friend, and she told me this thing will never end. So that comment got me thinking that this thing will never end except something different is done. Something different is done. What happens after this event occur? Look at the list. Our brother here, Tyrese. You know Tyrese. You all know Tyrese. Tyrese just shared the name of all the people that that have died in police custody, like Travis Carter, Chantel Davis, Eric Garner. We know Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Ricky Boyd, Evan Jefferson, and on and on and on. The names are becoming countless. You can't even count them. You can't mention them all. So the normal thing that happens when events like this, George Floyd that was killed recently, that's causing riot all over the United States. The normal thing, the usual thing that happens is that our leaders, celebrities, they will come on and post and share and say some things and say this and say that. Al Sharpton will come on TV and complain and say this and say that. Leaders will come and talk. There'll be riot and everything. What I'm saying now, what I'm trying to address now is, after this protest is over, after this riots is over, after everybody goes home to handle their business, you're going to work, you're trying to make money, you're trying to do this. After everybody settles down, before you know it, this thing will happen again. Then it comes back to the same circle, the same vicious circle. So if something has been happening as a result of a catalyst, and the same way we handle it, if it's not working, we need to look inward and think, what else can we do? That is the reason of my topic today. Do you have an African name. I'm going to say this right quick. Why is it that it is only African Americans that are suffering this fate in America? Why is it that only African Americans are killed in police custody? Different kind of things is happening to them in America. Other minorities, other immigrants don't suffer this. Why? We have Chinese immigrants, we have Jewish, we have Italians, we even have Africans. The list my brother shared here, Tyrese, when I go through the list, 99% of the people here are African Americans. So you now think, aren't there Africans here too? Why is it not happening to Africans? So we need to look inward and say, what is going on? I shared something on Facebook on my page. Let me open my page now and talk about and just read what I shared on my page on Facebook. Okay, this is what I said on my page on Facebook. I said, have you seen Chinese, Japanese, Israelis, even African nationals treated like our people, African American people? Is a question. Have you seen Chinese, somebody putting a knee on his neck until he dies? A Japanese national and a Jewish national. Have you seen that? The way our African American brothers and sisters are being killed. We had this same year, a sister was in her own house. The police were not even coming for her, they were coming for something else. And they shot her through her window and she died. Have we seen that happening to any other national? So that is the question. Then my own answer that I suggested is, because these people have nations and governments behind them. Government only speaks to governments. Power to power. Then I put on the bottom of it, hashtag know your roots, time to embrace Africa. Listen, I'm going to give you an example. You can check Google to know what I'm talking about. This video is going to be short, but I might come with a second part. Recently, Africans, especially Nigerians in China, because of this coronavirus incident, recently, some of you heard the story. Recently, Chinese people start to kick them out of their houses, won't let them buy food for no reason. They just started mistreating Africans. Some of them were saying it's Africans that brought corona to China, you know. We saw all that on video. None of them was even beaten or harmed or killed. No, none of these Africans was, that I know of, none of them was mistreated like that. They were just kicked out of their house. They won't let them go to the store to buy food, so they were on the street. They shared the video with all of us Africans, with the whole world. What happened? My own country, Nigeria, where I'm from, our ambassador challenged the ambassador of China. I was telling him, the man was put his hands behind his back when he was challenging him. He said, how dare you touch the international passport of Nigerian citizens in your country? This passport don't belong to you. This passport belongs to the Nigerian government. All over Africa. There was on the news about maybe 40 Chinese people were gathered. They were gathered, they showed them on video, and they were committing fraud in maybe Kenya, one of the East African countries. They were committing fraud. So what am I saying? For mistreating Africans, African government and African people responded, and the Chinese people had to sit up, had to, realize that they have touched the wrong people. But when it comes to America, our African American brothers and sisters suffer this fate every time. So this is the reason that I think, you may say I'm wrong, You may not want to hear what I'm saying, my brothers and sisters. You may not want to hear what I'm saying, but this is what I want to tell you. African Americans are being messed with day in, day out, repeatedly. Why? Because they don't have a nation behind them. They don't have a government behind them. They don't have power behind them. All our leaders, celebrities, I follow most of our brothers, Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent, those are my guys, you know. I follow people that are my age group. Snoop Dogg is my age group, 50 Cent, and you know, other guys, you know. I follow other, you know, African American leaders in America, and they're doing great job. They're doing amazing things, you know, for the community. But listen to this, they have no power. Even the power they have, most of them are not using it. Look at Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick used this power. He took a knee. Because of that single man, that one person, a lot of things have changed in the micro, you know, micro level. At least the discussion, because of him, I've come up with the NFL and all that. One person. So most of our leaders, they have some level of power. They need to start using it. But in the real sense of the word, they don't have power. What do I mean that they don't have power? Compare the richest man in America, who is African American. How much power does he have? Can he call President Trump and say, I want to see you in White House, or I want to come to White House? Or can he raise a grievance and President Trump will listen to him? Compare him to the president of my country, Muhammadu Buhari. That's his name. You may not know him. Muhammadu Buhari, that's his name. If Muhammadu Buhari picks up the phone and says he wants to speak to President Trump, it's going to be a one-way. Why? Because he has power. African leaders have power. Why? Because they represent governments. These governments have armed forces. They have level of hierarchy. They have institutions, military institutions, all kind of institutions that they represent. So they have power. Our African American brothers and sisters, our leaders, do not have power. That is why when these things happen, they come, share on Facebook, share on Instagram. I look at the videos, they share, and at the end of the day, they go about their business. So here's the deal. For African Americans that live in America like yourself and myself, there is something we can do. Have we not waited long enough for our African American leaders? What have they been able to achieve? This thing continue to happen. So as a black man here in America, I have taken a look about what is going on. And here is my submission. Do you know that in Houston we have what is called Chinatown? It's on Bel Air. It's right maybe 5 miles from where I'm living here. We have Chinatown. Yeah, it's the road is called Bel Air. It's filled with Asian folks, Chinese, Vietnamese, everybody. They congregate, they gather in one place, about maybe 2 or 3 zip codes. In New York, we have Chinatown. We have places where Jewish people stay. Do you know that in the Chinatowns around America, natural born Americans don't even police those places? That is like a Caucasian policeman, or as we call white man, or a black African American. Most of them don't police in those Chinatowns. Why? Because the people, they congregate at one place, number one. Then number two, because those people, they have a government in China representing them. So when a policeman wants to go into that area, into that zip code, he's conscious in his mind that, okay, though this is America, but where I'm going now, there are foreign nationals there. And wherever there are foreign nationals in America, there is governments behind them. And most likely they are trade partners with our own federal government. We have a lot in common in trade, relationship and all that. So I need to be conscious when I'm going to that area. So better yet, the police department now decide to say, okay, you're an Asian police officer, right? We will assign you to the Asian community. You're a Jewish police officer, right? We will assign you to the Jewish community to go and police that place. Do you know there are a lot of things that happen? I'm telling you, African American brothers and sisters now, there are a lot of things that happen in immigrant communities that don't get to the ear of the police. That they don't even. There are some things that happen in immigrant communities that it's even the national government, the government in Africa, the government in Japan, the government is in China, that even handle those things. What am I trying to say? I started with a question: do you have an African name? So when I talk about these communities, you ask me the question. Africans, like in Houston here, we have a particular zip code. We have some particular zip codes where we have mainly Africans that live there. If you go there, even as a police officer, all police officers in Houston know that this area is filled with Africans. So when they go there, they know that they are dealing with Africans. And these people are represented by governments in Africa. Do you know how much America is benefiting from countries and governments in Africa? They don't want to mess that up. Do you know how much oil, even with all the oil America has, do you know how much, what do they call it, cobalt? Cobalt is used for your cell phones. Cobalt is used for your cell phones. That is what makes your cell phone not overheat and burn. The material used that this phone can heat up and not melt or burn, the material used is called cobalt. And this material is only gotten from Africa. So you know how much the governments, the Western governments, get from Africa. So they don't want to mess with that. So your question will now be, okay, why are Africans enjoying this privilege that we don't see this same treatment happening to them in America, but it's happening to African Americans who were brought here from Africa as slaves? The only difference I can tell you is this. The name. The name. Do you have an African name? I'm going to say this. When I was younger, I asked my dad. My father, he died. He passed now about 2 years ago or 3 years ago now. 3 years ago. I asked my dad growing up. I noticed that most of my friends have either English names, European names, John, Adebayo, Adebowale or something like that. So there's always, European name in some of their names. My country, Nigeria, was colonized by the British. But I noticed that myself, my siblings, all of us, none of us have any English or European names. We only have Yoruba names. So I asked my dad, I said, Dad, why don't I have a Christian name or English name? That's how we say it. Why don't I have an English name? You know what my dad told me in reply? My dad said, did the Englishman give his children African names? Case closed. No further questions. That is why all my kids, they only have Yoruba names, no English names. Because the Englishman, the European man, didn't give his own children European names. Why? Your name is your origin. Go and read the Bible. Even when God wants to do something with some individuals, He will give them names. Abraham was once Abraham. God changed his name because of what He wants to do in his life. Your name is your origin, number one. Your name, number two, is your identity. So African American brothers and sisters, I want to tell you this. I'm just going to tell you straight up before I continue. Point blank, straight up. You need to throw away all those European names you have. You may not throw away all the names, but you need to change your name. Either your first name or your middle name. Go to the court and change it and make it an African name which shows your origin. The names you carry, all these European names you carry, it's not yours. It don't show origin. It don't show identity. I go on. When I was back in Africa, I watched this program or this movie or film or whatever it's called. We call it movie back then. Roots. Most of you know Roots. You remember Roots, Kinta Kinte? As a young boy, when I was watching Roots, the only thing I can remember, because I watched Roots I think it was in late 70s. Well, that tells you how old I am. I'm not a young boy. We watched Roots in the late 70s. The only thing I still remember till today about Roots is where Kinta Kinte was being flogged and they were asking him, "What's your name?" He would say, "My name is Kinta Kinte." They'll keep flogging him again. They flogged him almost to death. They say, "What's your name?" "My name is Kinta Kinte." They flogged him, they whipped him almost to the point of death. That's when he now called the name that his captor gave to him, maybe James or John or something like that. So here's the deal. When our people was captured from Africa, they were stripped of everything. But the only thing they held on to was their name. Because their name was their identity and their origin. They held on to it, number one. Then number two, their captors. When their captors want to establish ownership of them, they had to change their name. The same way we go buy a car. The same way we go buy a car and the title is put in our name. A car that is in my name belongs to me no matter what happens to that car. If it's stolen, whatever happens, if the car can gain consciousness today and say whatever it wants to say, so long as that title is in my name, I own that car. So when I watched Roots back then, I was thinking in my head, I was like 7 years old. The question ringing in my head was, why is this guy not telling them the name they want him to say? That's number one question. The second question was, why is this man insisting that this guy should say a different name from the name he wants to say? I never knew the importance of names there. But now that I've come to America and I've seen what is going on, I looked at it, and just this recently, when I watched that video of that policeman with his knee on George Floyd's neck. I'm a medic by training. Now, that means first responder. I've been working in this coronavirus season. We've been working, I knew